from our live radio broadcast presenting the Writ Murder Mystery. Enjoy this frightening, fearful fest of fun. Enjoy the Writ Murder Mystery.
Wow, Donald, this lonely cabin in the dark forest is so peaceful. You really outdid yourself in picking a destination for our trip this year.
Well, it is fall, David, and when you trip, you fall. Fall trip. Get it? Get it, David?
Yeah, please don't stop writing books.
Whoa, you write books, Donald? I didn't know that.
I'm a mysterious man, Christina. Thanks for coming with us on our trip, everybody. All of our previous guests on the show are here.
Yep, there's Alan, Christina, Jake, Sydney, and Lexi. Everybody's here in this cabin.
Hey, everyone.
I feel like a real elf being out here in the woods. Glad I brought my bow and pointy ears.
Hi, I'm Sydney Chapin. I'm totally here. I totally was able to make it this episode. I'm here.
I'm here, too.
Yep, everyone's here. Although I'm not sure why you brought your bird too, Donald.
Penny needs some exposure to nature. He needs to get more attuned with his inner dinosaur.
Looks like it's working.
Hopefully not too well.
No, Penny, come back!
Hey, no, he'll be fine. He's gonna go get attuned with his inner dinosaur out there.
I suppose that's true.
Well, while everyone gets settled in, I'll get more firewood.
Have fun in the woods alone in the middle of the night. Be sure to stay by the thick trees so you can get cornered.
Here, take my flashlight with you. It's got a little power left, though, so it might burn out at any moment.
Thanks, everyone. I'll be back.
What an ominous sounding wind. Man, I'm loving this trip!
Ooh, look at these little trinkets. They kind of look like miniature Bigfoots?
Wow, look at them! Looks like there's 7 of them, but they're in a box of 10.
Ooh, 10 little Bigfoots.
What an ominous bit of music. Man, I'm loving this trip!
There's 7 of those totems, like the 7 of us. Yes, fun Bigfoot totems. I wonder where Sydney is, though. How long does it take to get some firewood?
I don't know. Here, I'll go holler for her. Sydney, where are you? The fire's running out real... Oh, God! Oh, that's horrifying!
Donald, what's going on?
Sydney's body just got thrown back to the cabin!
Ooh, like a catapult? That sounds fun.
Her dead body!
Oh no.
Hey, guys, look at this. There's only 6 little Bigfoots now. That doesn't make any sense. Shouldn't it be Big Feet?
Is that where mine is going now?
Well, we can't just sit here and do nothing. Come here, killer. I've got an authentic elvish longbow, and I'm not afraid to use it.
Lexi, no!
For Lady Galadriel, for the Even Star!
Oh no, the tree!
No, Lexi!
Well, I could go for some human pancakes right now. I'm starving, so let's make the best of it.
Christina, now's not the time to entertain the thought of cannibalism. There's a killer in these woods and we're the targets! Alan, are there 5 totems now?
Yes, there are, David. Oh, wait, now there's 4.
Wait, 4?
No, Jake!
No! We just saw his feet as his body was being dragged into the shadows, and then he was gone!
What are you describing it for, Donald? We all saw it! It's not like we can only hear what's going on!
I don't know, I'm just panicking, okay?
Wait, there's a note here with the Bigfoots. Big feet.
What does it say, Alan?
I see it too. Welcome, friends, to my new living place. In order to move in, I must eat your face. Signed, Mr. Pennyworth.
What does that mean?
I'll gladly leave. This Pennyworth guy can take it.
Oh, I see how this is. Mr. Pennyworth is one of us!
Where is that music coming from?
I'm confused, David. You're saying one of us is a killer and wants to live here?
I'm not pointing any fingers, but it is a poem. And Sydney is a poet.
She writes better poems than that, though. Hers are too deep and meaningful to, rhyme.
Look, I might not know Sydney too well, but I doubt she's a killer. Plus, Donald saw her dead body, which means it must be your fault, Donald.
What, me?
I've known Matt for years, Christina. He's definitely not a killer.
Thank you, Alan. I mean, I suppose might be a killer in the looks department, but...
Oh, shut up, Donald.
I've known him for years, too. As nice as Donald can be, I've always felt that he could just snap at any moment.
What?
I've always assumed you might just go nuts and use that wonderful creativity of yours in a more morbid...
Oh no, Christina just got hung by a rope that appeared out of nowhere and wrapped around her neck and...
Stop describing it, Donald!
Oh, this is too much. I need a drink. And I'm Mormon, so you know how serious this is when I need a drink.
3 Bigfoots left. No, wait. Now there's 2. Alan, don't drink that!
Oh no! That musical sting was late! They got our studio orchestra!
David, before either one of us go, I just want to say how happy I've been to have you as my best friend. I love you, man.
I could have picked a better best friend. I'll admit that now.
Well, screw you, then. Oh, no. Maybe I am a killer. Maybe I am Mr. Pennyworth. I am... Oh. No! David! Only 1 Bigfoot left. It's just me. I'm all alone. Maybe I can start crying now, since I can't embarrass myself anymore. Oh, Mr. Pennyworth, I don't feel so good. I don't want to go. I don't want to go. Pennyworth, please. Please, I don't want to go. I don't want to... Penny? Penny, you're back from your flight. But you're covered in blood? And you're holding a gun? How is that possible? Yeah, sure, by the handle, but it's not a question of where you grip it. A 3-ounce bird cannot carry a 4-pound pistol. And about your note, how did you write that? Okay, you used one of your own feathers as a quill, sure, but... Wait, this isn't the issue right now! Why are you killing us, Penny? What do you mean this is your new place, and you're gonna eat our face? Wait, you wanted a new bird cage? This cabin is your new cage? And you have to kill the occupants? Oh no! You've taken the attuning with your inner dinosaur thing too far! You've become a cold-blooded murderer! Please, there's still time to back out of this! You might have killed 6 of my friends, but you know we can work this out! We can work this... No, put the gun down, Penny! Put down the... Dun, dun, dun! Like that one has a final longer note to signal the finality of it. Welcome, fellow nerds, to another episode of the Writ, a show about writing, where we keep going out to the dark and scary woods, regret immediately due to horrific events, but you can bet your behind we'll be back out there next year.
Welcome, listeners, to another episode of the Writ, the show where all conventional things you believe about running jokes are turned on their heads. The show where excursions only ever happen once a year and always end in misery. The show where our hosts somehow die, but magically get resurrected to talk about writting.
Ooh, negative continuity for the win.
Anyways.
How you doing this month, David?
Listeners, I'm going to have to apologize in advance, just in case you happen to hear a lot of leftovers, coughing, sneezing, etc., etc. I just got over, well, I'm still not completely over being sick, so I apologize, but the show must go on.
The show must go on, except for last week, when we were going to do it, but then we decided to
but that's
break.
The thing, though. Like, last week, we, for the purpose of my health, decided to postpone recording until now. And, still not, 100%, but I am a lot better than I was.
But we're going to give it our all. That shows how much we care about this podcast. We love it so much.
Indeed.
We're so dedicated.
We do care a whole lot about this podcast. Thank you for our regular listeners. Continue listening to us and putting up with our
Indeed.
Whatever you
I was
like
just
to call it. And,
I was just talking with a friend of mine yesterday, and she has listened to 10 episodes so far of the podcast. And
wow,
that's nice.
Considering we're on 26, we didn't even mention 25. I feel like incomplete that we didn't do that.
I mean, we still haven't finished 26 since we're still recording it, but
yeah, we're still recording it, but still. Let's say
anyway. Okay. Here's to 25 complete episodes, David. Clink.
Yes, clink. Cheers. Anyways, before we get too far off our base, what are our? Let's go to our usual segments,
of course,
including what will we rip off from this month?
Yes. What will we rip off? Indeed. What's plot elements? What's wondrous tropes of stories of? I don't know why I'm prolonging this. There's no reason for it.
There's no reason to prolong it now, so let's just go. What you got?
All right. Well, this week I'm ripping off a less specific work, more of a broader theme present in many works. See, so I'm working on, I finished writing the third Megazoic book, and it should be published next month. But I'm working on the fourth one right now, and I'm not going to go into much.
Oh, sure. Let's just gloss over the fact that you might publish a third book next month.
At this point, I'm just like, I'm over it.
It's just water off a duck's back.
What else is new? What else is new? I published a book. I did my taxes. I took out the trash. It's all
running together. They're all the same.
Yeah.
No, but seriously, huge. I shouldn't speak for him, but a huge thank you to the editor and illustrator.
It hasn't happened yet, so keep your panties on, okay?
Stop getting your hair in a net.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you though. It is still pretty cool. I'll definitely let you guys know next month if it's out yet or not.
And if it's not, I will be quick to remind you. But you said it would be done. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, I tend to disappoint a lot of people.
So,
anyways,
about the subsequent book, the one that's not close to being published.
And it's not, and the first draft isn't finished yet. But I'm at a point, again, no details, where there's a siege of a fortress. I won't say who's sieging, what, or why. But
yeah, that'd be too much spoiler.
Yeah, exactly. I don't even think you know it. I mean, I think you know it. I think you've assumed
I could guess, but I'd probably be incorrect because I'm not as attuned to what's going on.
Right. But anyways, so I'm looking over a bunch of works utilizing this type of setup. Currently, my main inspirations are like The Battle for Helm's Deep and Minas Tirith from Lord of the Rings, those kind of movies and such. Quite a few video games as well, just watching various cutscenes and such. And a friend of mine from work recommended to me The Battle of the Bastards from Game of Thrones. I have actually not really watched Game of Thrones. It's a bit too cynical for me, as I've probably mentioned before a few times in the podcast. But I might find that bit and see if I can find it and watch that, because that's pretty cool. It's nice to get that kind of inspiration. So it's not so much. I guess it's true to the segment title. What I will rip off from this month. I haven't done it yet.
True.
So
in that respect.
Anyways, that's what I've got.
Yeah, I suppose there are so many different works. Like,
yeah, do you have any suggestions?
When I was thinking about that, I was coming up with a blank. Not because there aren't a ton of them, but because there's so many that it's just like, well, which was really the best example to give you? And, properly remembering them was not happening at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that most fantasy properties where, you have the evil lord in a castle, you're going to have this kind of thing. Now, I don't know if the factions align the same way, but
right, who's the defender, who's the attacker, right, yeah.
But the sieging of a fortress is pretty similar,
Yeah, it is.
You've got a bunch of different tactics. One thing you might do that this came to mind when I thought about farming out suggestions, but I'm not sure which book you'd find it in. In the Redwall series, the stronghold of Salamandastron.
I think I've heard of this.
The home of the badgers and the hare. What
was this from Lord Brocktree?
Lord Brocktree is the name of a certain badger lord, so it might be in that book. But there are a bunch of books that have Salamandastron as a location, and enemies are constantly trying to siege it, starve them out by blocking all entrance and supply routes.
Yeah,
that's one method. But there are a lot of different ways to do this, and I honestly do recommend the Redwall series as a whole.
Right, of course.
I'm not sure which particular book you could find a good example of this in, so sorry I can't give a precise recommendation.
as far as I know, I don't want it to be. I don't want it to be like an actual historical siege because those are way too boring. It just amounts to having a bunch of troops.
Oh, heaven forbid!
Most of it just happens to have a bunch of troops surround a fortress and then wait let them starve out through attrition and not being able to leave.
Well, I mean, it's a fortress, so
right.
Theoretically, it is. Nigh impregnable, but if you can manage to block off their supply chain...
Right, that's really what it amounts. Like, very rarely... Now, it happened, of course, but rarely were there actual, like, the sort of things that you see in movies and such, like, the trebuchets, and everyone's storming the gates. Now, obviously, of course, it happened, and, like, that's why those things exist.
Well, it's probably they tried and failed,
Right, but more often than not, it was just so much easier for armies to just gather their troops and their trebuchets and other stuff and just sit out and... force them, starve
taunt
them out.
but not actually, and just wait them out.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not exactly like exciting per se.
Yeah.
But that's the best way to do a fortress because obviously a fortress is designed to be difficult to take.
Right. Now I guess that could happen like before the fight, and that could last for a long while. Like if again, I'm not going to say if this is or not. This is just an example.
Sure.
But if the attack on the fortress was the climax, then them surrounding the fortress and trying to starve them out could be like the second act.
Building it up.
Yeah, exactly.
Building up to it.
Yeah. So I don't know. Is that how it is, or is it not? Who knows? You'll find out whenever that one's published.
You'll find out when we finally end up seeing the final book of Megazoic being published, which will be not for a while yet. You haven't even published the third one.
Yes, the Hunted Ones. I have said the name of it on the podcast, so let's...
Yes.
Fourth one, you'll find out.
Yeah, let's not give that away.
It has no name. Like usually lately it's like...
It has that hidden name, so like everybody who sees it doesn't know what it actually is talking about.
Well, I was just thinking
something like Alpha Squad or whatever.
The Kerfuffle of Blah. Okay. Also,
what was the one? There was something they did. It was a really famous one for like the Avengers 2 script or something. I can't remember the name they used, but that kind of like red herring, if you will.
Oh. Or Megazoic, the red herring. That could work too.
Anyways.
What I was actually thinking was like, what if it was just Megazoic again? Sort of like the God of War games? Even though the fourth one... Well, a lot of times video games do this. Even though it might be a sequel, or sometimes movies do this too. Like just last week, Halloween came out, and it's a sequel to the 1978 movie, also called Halloween.
Yeah, fair enough. Anyway, I kind of feel bad. Kind of feel bad admitting this because this is totally, spoiler alert, the topic of our episode.
Oh, they can see in the title.
I'm not really fond of like horror stuffs.
No, I can. Yeah, I get you. I'm not really either.
So we'll see how this goes. But anyway,
as usual, we have no idea what we're talking about, listeners. So listen at your own risk. What are you gonna rip off?
Exactly. It'd be kind of like asking us for, actual real-life romance tips, because that'd be just about as successful.
Flirt often and be awkward.
Strive to be adorkable, right?
Right. Don't worry about being creepy. Just flirt more. Yep, so after all these jokes, what are you going to rip off, David?
Right. Well, I took another month to watch stuff on Netflix, and while it wasn't the greatest decision as far as like writing progress,
of course,
it was kind of neat because I got a couple of really good ideas. And the first one that I want to talk about is itself a remake, a reversion from a Japanese anime a long time ago,
right,
called Voltron Defenders of the Universe, and that is the currently running show Voltron Legendary Defenders.
Love that show. So good.
I like that show as well.
It's a good westernization of an anime property, I think.
I haven't watched the original anime, but I definitely want to now that I've seen
of course,
and just to compare it. But anyway, the thing that I really liked was there is a villain introduced in the second season by the name of Lotor.
Actually, he was introduced at the very end, name dropped at the very end. And
he was name dropped in season 1, you're right.
No, he was name dropped in season 2, and he showed up in season 3, so...
What?
That's what I think. I don't know, maybe not.
You're correct. Sorry, I forgot. The conflict with Zarkon, the original villain, lasts until the end of season 2, and then they name drop him for the following.
Right.
Sorry, forgot about that. You're correct.
Well...
But anyway, Lotor has this fighter ship that has, like, maneuverable, like, I'll call them arms. They're not really arms. They're more like obviously wings, I suppose.
They're like tentacles?
But essentially, no, they're not tentacles that much. But literally, the wings themselves could change direction at the drop of a hat.
Nice.
So, like, he could literally turn one so it was facing behind him and use the gun mounted on it to fire at ships behind him.
Right.
He could turn really fast just by flipping the wings if he wanted to, without even, like, making, the mandatory arc kind of a thing.
Right.
That is absurd maneuverability.
It's pretty neat.
And I just think that, like, it would be the best kind of ship for a space epic of some kind. Not that I have many things in that particular genre right now. I suppose Pulsar's close, but considering most of the action happens on Earth,
well,
it doesn't really work either.
You could change that. You're a writer. But yeah,
I could change that. I do also really appreciate how this version of Voltron, admittedly the only version I've seen, but still, has a very nuanced approach with their villains.
Of course.
I'd like to use that somewhere. Beyond that, I also I have watched Voltron up to season 7, the end of season 7.
Right, and season 8's coming out, and I think they said it's the final
season
one.
Season 8's coming out they said it was the last. They said that's coming out in December, so I'm excited for that. But anyway, I'm basically caught up to Voltron Legendary Defender right now.
Right.
And there is, in the middle of, I want to say it was season 6, or was it season 7? Doesn't particularly matter.
Who knows?
They are willing to break out and have a silly episode that is hardly important, but it still manages to add something.
Nice.
A spoiler-free summary of that episode: the Paladins, the main pilots of the Lions, the main characters, are taken into a game show that determines their fate. And the outcome of the game show, what it symbolizes, who's the game show host, etc., it's actually quite shocking.
Nice.
Spoiler-free summary.
Cool.
Anyway,
it's
neat. Something I'd love to add to a PR fanfic somewhere where I have the chance. I do have to mention that in Power Rangers, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, they did an episode that was an all-musical episode. And what I mean by that is
episodes.
What I mean by that is they literally had this monster that cast a spell over the Rangers that forced them to speak, and they had to do everything in rhyme, and it was kind of hilarious.
That's actually a really clever use of that. I like that.
Yeah. You might remember that in the early age of Power Rangers, they had a specific morphing call. They'd say, "It's morphing time."
But then they'd be like, "It's morphing time."
Yeah, well, and they had to do it in sing-speak, but they also had to find a way to rhyme it with something just so they could morph.
That's hilarious. It's morphing time. And they can't do you can't do a half rhyme.
And they can't do it unless it rhymed with something else beforehand, so they had to do that.
You can't do a half rhyme, so you can't do "It's morphing time and we'll all be fine." It had to be a full rhyme, I'm assuming.
I don't remember precisely if it was a half or full rhyme, whatever, but...
It's morphing time, we move on a dime!
Okay, here's the... Well, and they had to end with "It's morphing time, so the rhyme came before it. But anyway, point being, though, that was a fun episode for the cast and the crew to do, I'm sure.
Yes.
But that episode added basically nothing to the plot.
Well, of course.
Whereas this one, in Voltron Legendary Defender, not only added something to the plot at the end,
right,
but it was still fun.
Yes.
Yes. So I really liked that.
Mm-hmm. That sounds fun.
Another thing that I did was watch the conclusion of Season 2 of a series of unfortunate events. I mentioned it last time.
Yeah, the new Netflix series,
as well. And they are currently working on Season 3, I think I read somewhere. But anyway, I finished the second season, and I mentioned that, any work that... Oh, wait, I didn't mention that. I'm mentioning it here.
Okay. I don't keep track.
I'll get to that in a second. I don't believe that I could write a darker story like Lemony Snicket did with a series of unfortunate events.
Yes.
However...
Shame about what we're talking about then, huh?
I know. I'm all for crafting a story that encourages erudition, which is never a bad thing.
Of course.
If you look deep into the names and some of the choices that Lemony Snicket makes as an author of a series of unfortunate events. By the way, Lemony Snicket is a pen name, in case you weren't.
No, I thought it was his real name, Mr. and Mrs. Snicket. We're like, I don't know.
Anyway, he does some things that actually call back to ancient tales and stuff like that you don't necessarily know off the top, but if you do know, it's kind of like a nice nod.
Phineas and Ferb
Another
does
one
that for various sort of things.
Phineas and Ferb does that too. I'm assuming because they're from the same creators, Milo Murphy's Law probably does a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
They had a joke about time travel once, where like someone says, "I joined the time travel agency so I could stop the Mississippi Purchase." The other person was like, "You mean the Louisiana Purchase?" And the first guy was like, "You're welcome."
That's funny.
Yeah.
Another good example of erudition in suggested from a work is actually one of my favorite musicals, The Music Man.
Ah, yes.
And The Music Man...
He's a what? Sorry.
A Music Man has a barbershop quartet in it, which is why I really like the musical. But there's one line in this song, The Sadder But Wiser Girl.
Yeah.
I hope and I pray for Hester to win just one more A.
That's right. I remember that line. What does that mean?
That is a reference to the classic book, The Scarlet Letter.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the A. Yes.
Yep. So she earns an A for committing adultery, and that's what the A stands for. And so Harold Hill is saying that I hope for this girl to win another A. You know, like seriously.
That's a bit much. Okay.
That's a bit much, but like if you don't understand the reference, it actually encourages you to look it up.
Right.
I love that in a story.
That's pretty good.
Never a bad
Let's
thing.
say like that encourages you to look it up. He Gary Indiana.
Oh wow, that reference.
Well, I mean, a Music Man. So
will it never die?
Nope. It's a legit. I'm gonna keep saying it until Oxford is forced to put it in
as many times as you can at the annoyance of your co-host. All right. Well,
next segment.
That's what I'm planning to rip off this month. So we'll go to our next segment, our usual. What we at the Writ have writ.
What have we writ? Let's find out what we have writ. These twits have writ. What is it?
Let's talk about writting.
What?
You go first. What are you waiting for?
Yeah, what am I waiting for? I like to prolong things.
Because we don't need any more time in our intro, God.
Okay. I, of course, like I said last segment, I'm writing more on the final Megazoic, right?
Yes.
And then I'm also working on Hunted Ones, which should hopefully be out for us by the time we can do another ad for it, like maybe during our Christmas episode. Like, what do you want under
an actual ad for your actual book that you're trying to get people to buy with actual money,
and then put it under their actual Christmas trees because that's when it'll be out. It's like, oh my gosh, look, what is that? Little Timmy likes this book.
Oh jeez, customer reviews included.
Yep, this book sucks, and this book sucks, and your mom is fat. Right? Yeah. I don't know.
I suppose. Anyway.
Okay, so that. But also, tomorrow, actually, your day today, I guess, because you're in Japan.
Well, I suppose so, because we were going to record this last week.
And by the time I do record this episode, many days ago, by the time this episode was released,
many days ago, right? Time is fluid.
Indeed, it's like a bit of a timey-wimey ball sort of thing. Anyways,
timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly kind of thing.
Anyways,
I'm not even a Whovian on any of that reference. Anyway,
who knows? Anyway, so
who knows?
Oh my god, I'm going to an event. On where I and a few other authors, like, we get to pitch our books to a crowd of people with wallets at the ready.
Wow.
And like, they got all the. It's a really serious thing. They got all the people. Someone there, like an accountant who deals with transfer funds and such. You have 30 seconds. I still need to work more on my pitch, but I currently have one that only takes 5.
Okay, let's go.
Dinosaurs with laser guns, 5-star average on Amazon. Dinosaur noobs, welcome? I just probably get another one that I can use the time more. Yeah.
Oh, jeez. That's enjoyable.
No, thanks.
So, I have to ask a little bit more information, though. Is this literally you're bringing copies of the book to sell?
No, I think they didn't say they have to bring them, so, well, hopefully they don't, because I don't have any on me.
Well, I was going to say, how would you, get them to the customers ready to buy the books? That doesn't make sense.
We have a link on Amazon, I guess. I don't know, I've asked them about that. They haven't said anything, so.
Maybe you need to work that into your pitch.
Well, like, just because
you
I
have
don't...
to buy my book.
I'm
You have to buy my book on Amazon. You already say 5-star average.
Yeah, like, I'm assuming that they didn't want you to bring all the books because, one, they would say that, and two, they expect a couple hundred people to be here. Do they want everyone to have a couple hundred books, just in case everyone wants to buy it?
Well, I suppose not, but at the same time, I'm not sure how the logistics of such an event work anyway. Not like I'm enough of a writer type to know. I don't know.
I in my head, I'm assuming there's a projector that shows it on Amazon or something. Like on like a slide on a projector sort of thing.
Fair enough.
I don't know. That's what I picture.
You
Who knows?
You see a copy. Well, like that's the weird part though, because obviously, the way you describe it, it's like they're planning to walk out of there with copies in their hand, and I just don't think that you could do that if you don't have the book.
I don't think that's.
If they didn't ask you for it,
no, they're just there to like.
It'd be hard to do.
To express interest in buying the book, I think. So I think it might be on Amazon.
Better hope you're right. I also hope it goes well.
I really hope it goes well. I really hope I didn't miss anything. I don't know. I'm nervous that I always do this. I get so paranoid. Where like I'm not just so much about the pitch itself, but also like, did I miss something? Will I end up having to not be able to do it
because... Will I be at a disadvantage because I didn't have copies of the book to bring?
Right. I have a bunch of the old cover version. I could just bring those just in case.
I wouldn't think that a bad idea, just because, what if they want to walk out of there with a physical copy and there's no other way to do it? But
okay, I'll bring those along. Thank you for the suggestion, David. I was the one who said it. But
well, I mean,
thank you for encouraging my suggestion.
I'm just your conscience. What can I say?
Anyways, well, thank you, conscience. Well, since you're
welcome, buddy.
Yeah, no problem. Anyways, what are you gonna write? Or what have you writ?
Well, what have I writ? Actually, I did make some progress. I found a way to make progress. It's simply taking advantage of those times, and I'm not consistent in doing that.
Right.
However, I, did progress in bits. I finished my episode of Starburst, handed it off to the co-author.
Nice.
And admittedly, it's going to be a while before I see it back because in real life, this co-author has a master's thesis that he's working on.
Oh, that's no fun.
Things are kind of busy.
Yeah.
So, I don't blame him for
it.
But, I won't see it back for a while.
Of course.
And that's fine. I expected that.
Oh, that's fine.
I also did some progress. I also had some progress on Pulsar.
Nice.
And what I'm most excited for, I finally finished a 2-parter in Pharaon Storm.
Yeah, how long did it take you?
Probably haven't mentioned before. Pharaon Storm was... Well, sorry, I'll do the elevator pitch first, and then I'll talk about how long it took.
Okay.
Pharaon Storm first was the original Ranger fic based on myth units in Age of Mythology.
Oh, the memories.
The memories. So, longer story short, I originally came up with 4 separate Power Ranger fics based on the 4 civilizations in Age of Mythology when you include the expansion pack.
For more information on this, listen to episode 13 of the Writ Wits. What we have once writ.
But we never finished that episode, did we?
We talked about that part for you, I think.
Did we talk about Pharaon Storm? Okay, I don't remember. But anyway.
Maybe, I don't know.
I don't remember if we got that far, though.
We talked about the ancient flower, remember? From the Atlantean one.
Oh, yeah, that's fair, Because he crossed over. He was originally in the Greek one, then went to the Atlantean
there we go.
Which he actually preferred, the character. I put that in the character's bit. But anyway, so, the four civilizations, you have Egyptian, Norse, Greek, and the expansion pack included Atlantean, which obviously is the, birth of Greek mythology, if you want to call it that as well. Of course. However, more importantly than that, the myth units were like, oh, this is a great idea for the Zords. And so I just basically started from there and worked my way forward. But anyway, that was the original fic that I did in that style. The others all came after and were not nearly as well done, as far completed. Not that Pharaon Storm is done. And to that point, it took me about 3 years to finish this 2-part.
Nice! Good job!
I finally got it,
Oh, yeah, you did. Good job.
But, it just took me so long between times of getting back to it and, oh, that's what I was planning to do and stuff like that. They got in the way. So, real life kind of interfered with that. But, now that I've got that done into an episode that I actually really want to write, we will see if I get more consistent progress from there or not. In addition, this is October, in fact, very late October because of the illness issues.
Of course.
And so I'm racking my brains for anything that may serve as nano fare. I honestly am wrestling with a decision to simply not participate this time. I've got a busy concert schedule in November, which obviously, all that time is time and I can't be writing. Now, admittedly, given how I normally succeed at nano in like the first half of a month, I have a feeling that it wouldn't be that big of an issue if I simply sat down and just did it per usual. But I'm just coming off of being sick. I got a busier concert schedule, which comes with rehearsals and stuff like that. Right. So, it's honestly a consideration. However, after talking with the technical co-creator of this character, certain Matt Donald.
Oh, yeah. That's me!
Longtime listeners may appreciate the fact that he has approved me to expand a little bit on the character Captain Writ. So that is a possibility for Nano this year.
I hope you read that contract. I slipped a few things in that you might regret later.
Oh, God dang you. Something about reading the fine print. It's not my fault you made it magnifying glass necessary size.
We gotta read it, the fine print. It's very, very fine. And it's
very, very
looks
fine.
Like
ground dust underneath an underline. But anyway, I don't know why you put in the fine print. I'm like the co-creator of this guy. Come on. That's not fair.
Well, it was your fault for signing the contract before reading it.
Well, are you going to really hold me to that? Yep. Come on. I'm not a lawyer.
I got lawyers at the ready.
How did you even write it? You don't have legalese experience.
All I have to do is snap my fingers, and then a bunch of lawyers with briefcases will come careening towards me.
Towards you?
Yes. Well, ready to serve me at my whim, basically. And enact legal justice.
Does that happen to include your sister?
Yes, and also Daredevil.
And Daredevil.
So watch out.
One thing I didn't mention, because there wasn't any particular thing to rip off from a specific thing. I did watch Defenders. That was a riot.
That's good. Anyways.
Anyhow. So that's more or less what I'm thinking on or have writ. So I guess from there we'll move on into our topic, which you mentioned a little bit ago.
Well, I think I mentioned it, but my memory's a bit hazy, a bit dark, wouldn't you say?
Sure. So let's refresh your.
That one was
memory.
really forced.
It was terribly forced, which is par for the course.
I know, but this one was especially so. Okay. It was so forced. It's just I don't know. Well,
It's so forced that we took a trip to the woods and all died just to talk about it.
All the existential crises I always have on this show, and I'm just like, what is the point of everything? I feel so lonely and helpless and morbid and dark. Ha!
Which generally happens when we're recording way too late in your evening. You're right.
I put it through again. So let's do this. Okay, we're talking about dark stories, listeners. Despite, as we said, we don't have
As we
much
both
experience.
mentioned, neither of us really like them. So, what's our area of expertise? Approximately nothing.
We're so professional, aren't we, David?
Yeah, we're the most professional ever. We really should have tried to get a co-host for this one, but at the same time.
Well, I do have the murderer of all of us in the woods over here. Hey, Penny.
We don't want to do co-hosts for every episode.
Right.
So,
right.
that's
the novelty
kind of
wears
thing.
off after a bit,
Exactly. Especially if you don't cycle in some new blood.
People come for the two of us. I mean, actually, they probably come for the writing advice more. That we're just a hindrance. But
as long as we're delivering the information, I suppose it's valuable.
I guess that's right.
Anyway, so the first thing we need to do is define a dark story. Because I'm sure for everybody that's slightly different.
Right, so we each have our own kind of thing.
These are just our personal opinions. This is not explicitly if it's outside of these, they're not dark at all. But
right. This is just what we
talk
think.
A bit about it.
Yeah, so I think, for instance, a dark story, it has an overall bleak and pessimistic tone, and really that's it. Everything else from literal light levels to specific content is mostly superfluous.
Very true.
I mean,
it's always dark and scary on this corner of Elm Street.
Right. I mean, keep in mind, I don't know. I was trying to think, I wish I'd come up with more examples of literally dark stories that are actually lighter, and literally light stories that are darker, so.
Yeah, I honestly don't. I mean, it's conducive. They're conducive to each other, aren't they?
Yeah. I mean, I guess.
You talk about mood lighting, right?
Yeah.
But obviously, it's not necessary. It's just dressing on. It's
I mean,
just,
people
frosting on the
people
cake,
seem to think I didn't see this, but apparently the new Solo Star Wars movie had some lighting issues. So
Yeah, I haven't seen it,
maybe
so I
that's
can't
why. Maybe that one movie was dark then. I don't know, but it literally so.
Oh. Well, I mean, if you want to talk about literal, then that's different.
Right.
But, like, outside of the literal definition, again, this is a subjective thing.
Right, of course. But anyways, for me, specific content such as murder, torture, and imprisonment are dark, but if the tone isn't pessimistic, that content in itself doesn't make the story dark. For example, and this is...
Simply having a murderer in your story does not automatically make it a dark story.
Right, exactly. Like, for example, this is the example I give. In The Princess Bride, your favorite movie, David.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, they had to tie me down. I was so excited.
And then we had to keep you down for 90 minutes. Did you see the PG-13 Deadpool 2 cut that's coming that's going to have...
A PG-13 cut is awful.
Well, no,
Why?
listen. I thought so too, but I listened to this. This is actually a really, really funny idea. So
it's kind of like that unnecessary censorship.
What
thing
happens
on YouTube.
is that it's a parody of Princess Bride, where Fred Savage, and yes, they brought him back, is sick in bed, and then Deadpool comes in and reads him a story, and it's Deadpool 2. So whenever they have something that's R-rated, they cut to him being like, "This is what happened." It sounds hilarious, and I guess
that does sound hilarious.
Like they have Deadpool dressing up as Peter Falk, but in the Deadpool mask, like Peter Falk or whatever. But, at first I was like, why would they do that? But apparently this is gonna get a limited theatrical release too, and it's gonna be.
So wait, they brought
Fred Savage.
Fred Savage. I couldn't remember.
Yeah, he's in the same set. He's still in bed, but he's a grown ass man.
Yeah, I was about to say he's not a kid anymore.
No,
that's for
he's
sure.
like in his probably early 40s at this
He's
point.
probably in his 40s now. Yeah. I don't feel like looking it up because that'd be unprofessional, but I'm sure he's.
But anyway, so that I thought you might like that. That's pretty funny.
That is intriguing. Although I want to see the original Deadpool 2 before.
Deadpool 2 is really great. I like it. Anyways,
well, I'm good for you.
So, Wesley gets captured.
Anyway, in The Princess Bride, which is the whole reason I'm talking about this.
And in The Princess Bride, Wesley gets captured and taken to the pit of despair. Wesley, as that one person says, without hope of escape or rescue. He gets tortured by the machine and is eventually killed by it. Although he's only mostly dead. If he was all dead, the only thing that they could do, according to Miracle Max, would be to cut through his clothes and look for loose change. So, despite this, though, the movie as a whole is not dark in the slightest. I mean, sure, there's some scary moments, like the ROUSs and the eels and some other stuff. But, like, The Princess Bride is not itself a dark movie, at least I don't think. And the reason why...
No, I'd agree with you.
...is because the tone is optimistic throughout. It's all about Twoo-Wov and other schmaltzy stuff, so...
I think that's a good example. I mean, as talking about, like, how dark material does not change the overall tone of a story. It's simply a blip on the radar.
Right.
It's not... It doesn't automatically, oh, well, you included it, therefore your story must be dark. That's not how it works.
Exactly. Like...
However... For, devil's advocate's argument here.
Yes.
I believe that dark stories tend to have darker subject matters at the center.
Of
now,
course.
Obviously, Donald said that specific content is kind of superfluous.
I mean, that's what I think.
Right.
You could think different things. We're all human. So.
And in a way, you're right. You can have dark events in lighter stories.
Right.
However, dark stories generally tend to revolve expressly around this stuff.
Of course.
Look at Scary Movie. Look at Halloween. Look at Nightmare on Elm Street.
I mean, Scary Movie's a comedy, but okay.
Well, Scary Movie's a comedy, but they're pastiching the genre.
Right.
But, it's one of those things, though, that the main subject matter is something that we don't view as light-hearted.
Right.
They may have delivered in a light-hearted way, like Scary Movie, but
or
that's
Zombieland,
the focus. That's the focus of the story.
Right. Yeah, I guess if...
And so it tends to be darker.
Right.
Now, again, that's not all-encompassing, and because the dark subject matter in those stories, it tends to have that tone that Donald was talking about. So I agree with that.
Well, I think...
This doesn't mean that they are free of fluff.
Of course.
And nor does it mean that stories outside of this label can't handle darker material.
Right.
Obviously in Princess Bride, which you would not call a dark story at all, they have these moments of darkness that are, surprising relative to the rest of the movie.
Right. But, like...
I'm not sure there's, like, a certain, if it's 60% dark and 40% light, then it's a dark story.
Well, like, here's an example, I think, that's kind of what you're talking about. Like, this is another family movie. And you haven't seen this one, actually, but it's the one that came to mind. Chicken Run is actually a surprisingly dark movie. It's a kid's movie. It's stop-motion animation and whatever. And it has a happy ending. But the majority of the movie, like, the main focus is them escaping from this chicken coop. But it's treated like a prison, and... if they stop laying eggs, they will kill them. And it's treated with all the shock and trauma that would entail. Like...
as the chicken. Not for the farmer.
But as for the chicken herself, and as for the other chickens who knew her.
Right.
And at one time, they'd look at an empty nest and know that was the one that got killed yesterday. And so it gets pretty dark, even though it is a family movie and it has a lot of funny moments. But I'd say that movie's darker than Princess Bride because of what you're talking about, because... it's more the focus.
It is the focus. Like, the main subject material is darker in nature. And so I think it kind of goes with that.
Right. Like, it shows why these chickens have to leave. Like, because they will eventually all get killed. So yeah.
So, that's kind of my take on it. As I said, I don't think there's a certain percentage, like, requirement of how much dark versus how much, lightheartedness. But obviously the challenge is balancing your character's inner light with the darkness surrounding them.
Yes.
Put another way, you can take these characters to some very dark places thanks to the conflict or the subject matter at hand. And some... will make it out to the other side intact.
Right.
Some probably won't. But they're likely to be changed by this.
Indeed.
You can't look at a series of murders and possibly be, like, 100% whole, the same as you were, without becoming more cynical, more fearful, that kind of thing.
Indeed. So, yeah.
So that's my take.
That's a good take.
And I think there's still... like, room for fluff in there.
Of course.
But the fluff is just superfluous.
Yeah, indeed. Like, I talk about that here, about room for fluff, because our next segment about this, like, which is basically how to write a dark story.
Sure.
Like,
well, I guess better ways to write a dark story.
Yeah, exactly. Like, better, like, ways that we, people who don't write dark stories, think you could write a dark story.
We can think about it, and obviously conceptually it's not that difficult. It's just
and our stories,
we're not willing to go there.
And our stories definitely have darker elements, like
I think every author has some dark elements in their stories, mostly because they're kind of essential. Like, especially if they drive the conflict, they're going to be there. They have to be there. If they drive the conflict.
Well, this isn't really a spoiler, I don't think. If you think it is, I can edit it out. But I'm just going to say in details. But the third Megazoic book does go to some darker places than the other two. So I'll just leave it at that. But anyway, so we're going to talk about, like, how to write a darker story. And, like, for me, like you said, there should be room for fluff. And I absolutely agree. Because for me, contrast, like any story, but especially this kind of stuff, I think, is essential. Like, if you have moments of light, then the dark hits harder. Like...
if you introduce this person as an innocent, waif, then all of a sudden when they're thrust in the middle of this conspiracy or this series of, near-death incidents, that does hurt.
Exactly, and like especially seeing like an innocent person breaking, like, or something like that. And like I use this again for my books, and it's not darker, but I can use the example for me. Of course, Megazoic. Most of it, it's very. I don't know if it's lighthearted, but it's very comedic. And there's a lot of stuff, but that means basically because of contrast, when it gets serious, it gets really serious, and people know that it's serious because the jokes just stop. But in order
serious mode,
well, exactly, and in order for that to work as well as it does, at least according in terms of people who have read it, apparently, but I don't know how. There has to be the jokes in the first place. There has to be something to stop. Yeah. So. And this is sort of a similar thing. Like
your argument about balancing is a good one because, obviously, if it doesn't exist, nothing changes, and thus it doesn't, impact the reader.
Right, exactly. Like if if the story is darker the whole time, like the entire time, I don't know if it's actually as dark as if the story starts out light and then becomes dark, even if very quickly. Like that sounds like a paradox, but I think
I suppose.
Like, just because, like, I don't know, like, that's how I feel. Like keep the tone pessimistic, even during those light scenes. Like, maybe just show it, be more hopeful, but then add that sort of a hint of naivety, you know?
I was about to say, it's kind of like, you know, this moment, this, like, beacon of light amidst the darkness that doesn't shine for very long, but it's enough to remind people that, you know, without the dark things happening to them, these people would be just normal, like anyone else.
Exactly.
Not necessarily dark.
And that make it like, that's like the tragedy of it all. So, like, make the hero question what the point is, like, during these light scenes. Or, like ominous signs forewarning something terrible. Like have those prominent and often.
Right.
Also, think of your audience. Like, if you have a dark story for adults, it's probably going to have a sad ending. At most, bittersweet. If it's for kids, though, it'll probably still have a happy ending, but like Don Bluth's movies, you can make the heroes and the audience endure a heck of a beating to get there. So...
Yeah. And thankfully, they're not always physical beatings.
Well, of course.
We're not advocating that.
No, I want the guys in the movies to punch the audience.
You want Fievel to be beaten to a pulp before he finds his family.
And I want whoever beats him to a pulp in the movie to leap out of the fourth wall and beat the audience to a pulp.
Anyway, a couple of my tipperoonies in this particular
tipperoonies
avenue.
Excuse me.
We haven't used that in a while.
Yeah, it's a good one.
So, a couple of mine. I think it'd be best if you figure out where rock bottom is. And try not to reach it too quickly.
Right.
If you're less than 10 pages into a book that you plan to have over 150 pages, I think you're getting too dark too quick. Of course. That's certainly...
Even though some people say that rock bottom has a basement. So...
Well, I mean... You know, rock bottom is supposed to be the very bottom.
Right, of course. I think people use that saying...
utmost valley.
I think people use that saying when people think... I already thought they hit rock bottom, but it turns out they didn't. So like, wow, I didn't know rock bottom had a basement. So, yeah.
Within dark stories, this is kind of an umbrella term.
Yes.
So within dark stories, you have some options. So you can concoct some kooky ideas.
Ooh, kooky.
Throw it at the wall, see what sticks.
Yes.
Personally, I think it best to work on gruesome descriptions.
Yes.
To amplify the fear factor, which should be present in your characters as they traverse this gauntlet of oddities or travesties that they have to face.
Right.
Because it's a dark story, your characters are probably going to be quite eccentric.
Yes.
Feel free to lean into those eccentricities.
Yes.
Particularly the ones that belong in more adult-friendly fare. That said, you do need to keep your target audience
of course.
in mind.
Think of the children.
If you're doing something like Don Bluth, you probably won't have too many people who are gothic and like, you know, nipple, tongue, belly button piercings, etc., etc.
Nipple tongue?
So, you know.
I'm just picturing someone putting a tongue on their nipples.
Nipple, comma, tongue, comma, belly button piercings, etc.
Oh, I thought you were like belly button piercings and putting tongues on nipples.
I'm debating whether I should just tell you to edit that part out entirely.
I don't say male or female. It could be.
I didn't. You're right. Anyway, you get the point.
Also, women
Thanks
have
for
nipples.
ruining it.
Sorry to ruin your kid's childhood, but no, they should know that. They suckled on them as a baby.
Yeah, but do they remember that? Anyway.
Oh, they've read a science book.
Hopefully. Yeah, but, you know, if they belong in more adult-friendly fare, like somebody who absolutely loves, you know, the sight of blood, for example.
I just love the sight of blood so much. I love it.
You can lean into that in a darker story where you can in a light one, right?
Blood.
And don't worry about focusing too much on the bad habits and the personal vile choices or personal faults that they possess.
Yes.
We're only human. We all have that quote-unquote darker side. And you know what? This story is a fantastic place to let that show.
Exactly.
So there's no such thing as focusing too much on that. And if they maintain some of those eccentricities, those innocent little qualities that make them enjoyable to read or write about, then that's fine.
Yes.
That's great.
Yes.
Thrive on throwing your readers for loops.
Right.
Since the unexpected makes these things work so much better.
Yes, exactly. Like the uncertainty, you know, not knowing what's going to happen.
I mean, yeah, you obviously have cliches and things that are overused, and so you can't always be like at the forefront of surprising people.
Oh God, that was scary. Oh wait, it was just a cat.
Eventually, you're going to run into something expected. Eventually you'll run into something that's been done.
Yes.
But try and do it in a different way. Try and give that moment its proper weight.
Yes.
They aren't expecting this to happen. And so when it does, they're scared out of their wits because they didn't really know what was going to be coming.
Yep.
Allow yourself the luxury of time so these darker leanings and troublesome trials don't undermine you personally as the creator.
Right. I don't know. I agree with that. So sometimes people though they really lean into their darker side and or their bad emotions. Remember when we had Sydney on, she was talking about how
there's a mood
she often writes poetry when her emotions are good or bad, not the middle. Yeah, a lot of it can be when she wants to write a sad poem or a bad poem. She does it when she's sad or mad. So
exactly, and because those things happen to all of us,
mm-hmm.
and so you need to give yourself the chance not only to maybe if you want to write it in the correct mood, but also make sure that you're not giving up yourself to write it. I will freely tell anyone that asking and accepting help to deal with emotional stuff is never a bad thing.
Pretty much encouraged, I'd say.
I'd wholeheartedly, if you think that you've gone too far, just for a story you're creating, don't be afraid to reach out.
Yes.
Get somebody to help balance you.
Are there too many dead babies in this story of mine? Oh, mother of mine who happens to be pregnant. Then I swear I'm not making this as some sort of. That was a bit far. I apologize.
That was a bit dark there, Tom.
Whoa!
Whoa! Getting in the mood, are we?
Yeah.
But it doesn't. I mean, a lot of us have a stigma about going to see psychologists, psychiatrists to get help. I'm not saying it has to be those people, but if you feel like you are about to lose yourself because of the dark atmosphere that you're creating, and you're trying to get into a place to write that, please take care of yourself first.
Well, as Alfred said in Lego Batman, you can't just stay up all night listening to angry music and beating up poor people all night. And Batman's like, yes, I can because I'm Batman.
Yeah, but what about the other person that's present there? Anyway, the last one I've got is this. Get yourself into a mood while exercising some darker thoughts.
Yes.
But also have some device to rein yourself in.
Yes. If you see fit.
Maybe it's a lighthearted moment in the story. Maybe it's literally putting the story down.
Yes.
Walking away from it for a little while. Yes. Resetting mentally.
Yes.
Something.
Yes, something. So you're not an angry, depressed person all the time. Or if you are and that helps you write better, great, do it. And everyone's different.
If it helps you write better, that's one thing. But if it
be a functional human being.
If it undermines you as the creator, then there is such a thing as going too
Absolutely.
far. So don't do that.
Don't pull an Ernest Hemingway, listeners.
So I wonder. I don't know the man personally.
He shot himself in the mouth.
But it'd be really intriguing. Not Ernest Hemingway. I was referring to another famous author who has a lot of dark type.
Edgar Allen Poe?
Short stories. Yes. Don't know him personally.
I know one of his relatives personally.
To say that he was, otherwise a lighthearted guy. And so, I wonder if there was a way for him to back away from this, traumatic world that he kept creating. And did he, have a way to escape that for his own sake?
I don't know. I told you that I was college friends with one of his, I think it was his great niece.
Yeah, you mentioned that at one point. Small world after all.
Yep, Miss Virginia Poe. Hey, if you're listening.
Thanks for listening.
Anyways, okay. So, how not to write a dark story is next.
Yeah. So we talked about some good tips. Now let's talk about some things to avoid.
Yes. I say don't make everything bleak and helpless all the time. Kind of like what you were going off on. Like you have a limit for yourself, as well as not just for the creator, but as for the story.
I mean for yourself, but for the story.
Story as well, your creator and story. But if you're bleak and helpless all the time, it's exhausting to read. There needs to be contrast of some sort. Even if it's so minimal. it has to be there. The story's all dark all the time and won't hit nearly as hard as if it started out hopeful and then became pessimistic. Or maybe it starts off pessimistic, it might get a little hopeful again, but then nope.
At some point, it becomes water off a duck's back if you don't change it
Exactly.
up. If you don't have a moment for the characters to kind of release, like, oh, look at all these things that are happening. They try and laugh about it. In fact, there's actually more humor to be mined in them trying to laugh and failing because of all the things.
And having more humor about it doesn't undermine the dark stuff, especially if it like especially if it like gets. It just gets cut away from them. It gives
your characters, it gives your readers, it even gives you a reprieve.
Yeah, exactly. Also, if you go too far with the dark imagery, like just having so much skulls and blood, like you call your book Skull Blood or something, exactly. You risk the work of becoming accidentally comical, like an edgelord trying his best to make others take him seriously. Like,
so are we calling Zombieland something in this?
No,
vein?
Because it's funny. It's on purpose, you know.
Oh, okay. So it's not accidentally; it's purposely.
Yeah, it's not
comic.
like I'm being serious. It's not a phase, Mom.
Oh boy.
Yeah, if anything you say about your Stark story has to be probably followed up by "It's not a phase, Mom," then you probably went too far. It's.
I'm just trying to think of a character that's not in their teenage years saying something like that.
Well, like, what was it that that one character in Overwatch is a character named
like that means so much to me who's never played Overwatch.
Oh yeah, of course. There's this character called Reaper who has black leather coat, a skull mask, 2 shotguns, and like he always talks like this. No one takes him seriously because like not in story, not in character, like not for the fans looking at him. He's just a joke. Also, it doesn't help that his age is like 50-something, so it just makes it funnier. Wow. You're like, grow up, dude. Like,
well, you should have grown up a long time ago.
Yeah, because like that just.
All right, fair enough.
I don't know. So that's what I think for how you should write a dark story. Don't go too far.
Yeah.
Don't make it accidentally comical and have some contrast. Don't not have contrast.
Well, I think if you go too far, it becomes comedic,
yeah, exactly.
even though you're not going for that.
Exactly.
So they kind of go together. All right. Well, for me then, you can only go so far without losing characters or changing them drastically. As I said earlier, you can't see a series of accidents and be entirely, the happy-go-lucky person you were before. It just doesn't work.
Indeed.
Killing off everyone stunts your narrative.
Yes.
Because obviously you'd have to introduce new characters to take up the... No, that doesn't make
I mean, unless it's how it ends.
You have to find a balance. Well, I mean, if that's how it ends, that's one thing. But you obviously can't continue from there very easily.
Right.
If all your focal characters are gone.
Yes.
And unless you're like comics in The Walking Dead where they keep introducing new protagonists.
I thought you were going to say that they become zombies.
Despite being post-zombie apocalypse. But anyway, if something's coming to scare everyone, anticipation is key. Mm-hmm. But too much predictability makes the end result lose some spice. If it's always going to be the Freddy or Jason model, then, and they can see it coming a mile away, the readers, even the characters, if they're seeing what's coming, then you don't have as much impact with that decision. Right. Trying not to follow cliches is a little difficult, especially in, horror, but... dark stories is not expressly horror. It's kind of a squares, rectangles argument. Yes. So anyway, don't simply check boxes on character stereotypes.
They have a skull necklace.
Particularly if death count is a large component of the tale. Right. Because then it just looks too obvious. Oh, here's my token Asian. He'll get killed off.
Here's the black guy. And
here's my token gay person, and she'll get killed.
Because gay people can't be happy. That's always what the implication is whenever the gay character gets killed off.
But that's the thing. If death count is a large component of your story, then simply having your token characters because you're checking off a box for diversity's sake is not a smart idea.
Don't just have one black guy and then make him die because the black dude always dies first. So,
I mean, I'm not suggesting you shouldn't have diverse stories, but don't have them in there solely to serve as cannon fodder.
Oh, that's kind of it. Can be kind of funny, but not if it's so dark story. Like if it's like a schlocky story, it's funny to do that. But like,
again, if you don't want it to become accidentally comedic, you don't have the token black guy who's always going to die first.
Yeah.
You don't have the token girl who has these high-pitched screams and she's always one of the last people because her screams are.
And also, it's the final girl sort of thing.
I mean, that's just it. I mean, if death count is not a big part and it just happens to be some people that die, then this is not a big issue. But if death count because of this serial killer is a thing, then you shouldn't just have a token character just for the sake of having that box checked.
Right.
If you, the creator, are brought to the edge, whatever that means for you, don't trip on it head over heels, please.
Of course.
Again, back to the point about get help if you can. If you can't stay grounded, it likely won't work well despite your best intentions. If you keep spiraling so dark that like you're doing things that you never thought that should happen in a story and you're thinking of things in your real life that you really shouldn't entertain the prospect of, it's not going to work as well despite your good intentions getting there. Something about the road to hell is paved with those.
Yes, indeed. That all sounds good. I think we've nailed it. Us experts of writing the dark stories.
Us experts of writing the dark story. And again, I mean, I don't want to undermine everything we've said.
Not. I think we got.
Keep in mind these are.
I definitely have.
But keep in mind that these are two people that don't really like focus on writing dark stories. Dark moments, maybe.
Oh, I have
obviously we know
quite a few dark
it.
moments in my stories, so yeah.
Exactly, and in your own personal lives as well, dark moments exist, and so you know what those entail, and so you can kind of draw on that experience. And I've always been like write from your own experience, or research.
Like I wasn't sure if I would bring this up. I think I might. Like one of the reasons why I like to write such comedic stories, and why I'm such a comedic person, is I'm actually clinically depressed, and I could draw on some of that to write my darker stories. It's fine. It's nothing. It's not really. It's nothing to be ashamed of. I take medication for it and such. No. I don't know, but like I'm doing fine, listeners. By the way, for them, like I'm totally fine. But it's a disease. It's a mental illness. It's not just that I'm sad. It's just how chemicals in my brain just don't work the way they do sometimes. But as well as all good as that is sometimes, especially with like allowing me to write some really funny stuff because it makes me laugh, in my opinion.
Yep.
I mean,
what's the reason for writing? To please yourself. In the end, it's to do it because you want.
Right. Exactly. But if I wanted to write a darker story, I could dwell upon those moments where I feel darker. So yeah.
Yep.
Indeed.
You obviously know what you know that no one else knows exactly the same stuff.
Yes, indeed.
So use that experience.
But in case for some...
Whether it's a lighthearted story, whether it's a dark story, my advice to you is, because of the darker nature of these tales, that you don't overextend yourself. That you don't get so far in that you can't come out.
Or do, if you want. I don't know. Nah, we can't advocate that.
Exactly, we shouldn't be advocating that. So.
Well, in case the listeners have any questions, because they want some more knowledge about how to write dark stories, and for some reason they decided to come to us, how do people get a hold of us?
Yeah. Well, per usual, we have our episodes are on iTunes.
Yep.
Please give us a like.
Likes and reviews.
Downloading
always help.
There.
Likes and reviews always help.
They are always helpful. Also, we haven't particularly mentioned this before, but the Writ is also downloadable in several other places.
Yes,
as well.
like my website.
If you're listening to this from his professional Matthew Donald Creator website, thank you. If you're coming to us from Libsyn, thank you. Wherever you're coming from, if there's something you'd like to say that can help us make better podcasts. Well, I don't know how many more resources you can have.
I know, but like a lot of podcasts say, available where all good podcasts can be found. I'm like, well, I need to find more of these good places.
Well, we need to get on that, I guess.
Or maybe we're just not a good podcast. That's why it's not on there.
Well, that could do. Any helpful tips for the newbies, people who are trying to write dark stories that haven't had practice before? Maybe we said something completely wrong and you'd like to let us know.
Actually.
Send us an email. Send us an email at mattd, that is 2 T's before the D, please, at MatthewDonaldCreator.com. Yes. Are we spelling it out or just leaving it in the description?
I'll spell it out. It's abcd@zyf.com.
In other words, check the description,
Yes.
listeners.
I spell good.
Exactly. IR great. Your own email program, you can do it directly from there. Or if you go to his website, MatthewDonaldCreator.com, you can use the Contact Us page.
Handy little contact thing.
If you're going to direct a comment to a specific host, please let us know about David or Donald, because we do share a lot in common with our name. So
not much else,
Matt D by itself won't really tell us
our middle names
who
are pretty
it is.
similar too, like Donald and David.
They are. They end with D
and begin with
and
D.
start with D. So,
and they're both 2 syllables.
Anyways, yes, so much in common, except we're not. We do like each other. Obviously, we wouldn't do this otherwise.
Actually, I want to talk to you about that. No, I'm just kidding.
I was just about willing to let go the missiles sent to Japan thing, but if you're going to say that,
God.
well, it's back on.
You still haven't let that go.
I was about to let it go.
Clearly not. You're still clinging onto it desperately. I think you're afraid to lose these missiles. Those missiles are all you've got.
They're all I've got on you, Donald. Anyway, you can also follow him at professional social media, like, Instagram. No, he doesn't do Instagram.
I do have Instagram.
Oh, you do have Instagram.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
I don't use it much, but sure. Why not?
Instagram, Twitter.
Yep.
Facebook at Matthew Donald Creator, much like the website itself. But at Twitter and Instagram...
Right, they're both at Matthew Donald 64. Y64.
Okay, so Y64.
Ah, well, there's a complex code here, David, that I will inform you as of now. Be prepared. Your brain might spaghettify. Twitter...
Is that a word?
Twitter was first founded in March 2006. The founder's son was 14 at the time. 3/06/14. Now, March 6, 2014, was the day Twitter made 3 changes to their terms and conditions that no one ever reads. 3/6/14. 3. If we assign the letters of the alphabet to this, we have C, F, and C, which stands for Central Force, North Carolina. The site of the first meeting of Jehovah's Witnesses. But in the original alphabet, Jehovah begins with an I. You see, if you take the coordinates of Central Force, North Carolina, they're precisely 4,321 miles away from an island in the South Atlantic. And on this island...
Wait, just a regular island, or is it...
Well, because Jehovah begins with an I, you see, so the significance that there's an island.
So,
okay. And on this island lies a secret temple, home to the great Blue Bird Idol, where Twitter got its logo from. This is all a big conspiracy that points back to the very founding of the Twitter company itself, which goes back all to this conspiracy on this island, and Jehovah's Witnesses that first settled there, and it all goes back hundreds of years. And all of it has nothing to do with me, so I picked 64 because it sounded good at the time.
Oh, I was about to say, well, where does Instagram fit into this?
Nothing! Absolutely nothing.
I think if we ever get to the final we're calling it quits episode, that
the
you've got to say
quits.
there's the Writ quits. Yeah, right. That if we ever get to that final episode, that you have to give us the actual true reason you did it, whether it's complete BS or actually.
That's what I do every week. That's complete BS or actual reason. So every week, every month. Damn it!
Every month, because we don't do every week. That would be horrifying. We'd never have enough material.
Ye of little faith, my creative wells in my brain never run dry. That's not true at all.
The creative wells in your brain, and they may not run dry, but we'd certainly run out of things worth talking about without any feedback. So please send us an email.
Please, we're so
any
desperate.
idea, any topics you want us to talk about, any questions for us that we can address. We do actually read those on the air, so please,
send
if you have
some
something,
through.
Oh, well, okay, I say that. We will read them on the air if you let us read them on the air. If you'd like us to do that, we will do that for you. If you don't, then we'll take care of it privately so we don't, protection of privacy and all that. So, if you have any questions for us, please.
I'm going to lie, because I can, and say we've gotten a lot of emails that have private messages, and we read those in our heads all the time. We're so popular.
I love how you just admitted to, I'm going to lie, but then
they'll never see this coming.
So unpredictable, us here at the Writ, except for our our annual trip to the woods that ends horribly.
And also our annual Writ Witty Awards.
Well, okay, there's that too. But anyway.
Until next month.
Speaking of which, we need to figure out what's going to be on that, don't we?
Oh, I've already got ideas in my head.
I know you have ideas, but we haven't talked about it other than ideas in the head phase. But anyway.
Well, I know another character who might turn me gay.
Oh, jeez.
Good old Thanos with that sleeveless outfit he wears. Look at those big purple muscles and that cue ball head.
And look at that awful chin. Anyway.
The butt-shaped chin. That could also be on Best Butts. Thanos' chin.
What kind of butt does that look like to you? Because, like, it has a bunch of lines.
An old man butt. So attractive. Okay, no.
Oh, my God. Only here at the Writwood, folks. Only
Where
here.
us two twits talk about writting, amongst other things.
Well, okay, I don't know about only here at the Writwood, but certainly us two twits who talk about writting and a ton of other things for no reason.
I got text. I'm so popular.
So professional. Anyway, until next month, listeners, keep writing. If you got questions, absolutely let us know.
Yes.
And we'll have something more for you next time.
Yep.
Until then, thanks for listening.
Take care, everyone.
I'm Matt David.
I'm Matt Donald.
And that was the Writwit. We'll see you next month.
Get out of here.
The Writwit.